Sometimes the most profound ideas are hiding in the simplest things. Today, we're going to look at something you probably have on your desk right now, a pencil. Sounds simple, right? But it holds an incredibly powerful lesson about how we can unlock our true potential. Let's get into it.
So let me ask you something, and be honest. Have you ever stared at a brand new project, or a really big decision, or even just a blank email and just frozen? That feeling, that fear of getting it wrong right out of the gate, man, it can be one of the most paralyzing things that holds us back.
And that feeling, it's the anxiety of the blank page. It doesn't have to be a literal piece of paper. It could be a new job, a new relationship, anything. That empty space is filled with all this potential, which is exciting, but it also feels like this massive, crushing pressure, doesn't it?
And that's the crazy thing about a fresh start. There's this immense pressure we put on ourselves for that first mark to be absolutely perfect. The first sentence, the first move, the first decision, we want it to be brilliant. But that obsession with being perfect from the jump is so often the very thing that leads to us doing nothing at all.
So how do we break through that paralysis? Well, the answer is right there in our metaphor for today, the humble pencil. Let's stop seeing it as just a tool and start seeing it for what it really is, a symbol for taking that first courageous step forward.
At its heart, a pencil exists to do one thing: make a mark. It's there to take an idea from inside your head and bring it into the real world. That very first line, that first word, that's an act of pure courage. It's the moment you decide to start, to create, to just try.
But the very instant that mark is made, something else happens. Suddenly, the potential for a mistake becomes real. That line might be crooked. The word might be misspelled. The choice, well, it might be the wrong one. The act of creation is also inevitably an act of vulnerability.
And that vulnerability, well, it leads us to the moment we all dread. It doesn't matter if we're drawing a picture or planning out the next 5 years of our lives. It's that moment when things just don't go according to plan.
And you feel it immediately, don't you? That stray line, that wrong turn, that decision that suddenly feels like a catastrophic error. There's this rush of frustration, maybe even a little bit of panic. The perfect picture you had in your mind is now flawed.
And this is where our brains kind of betray us. Our gut reaction is to treat that mistake not as a small detour, but as a permanent failure. Like it's a final judgment on our abilities, a sign that we just weren't good enough in the first place.
But hang on, we've only been talking about one half of the pencil this whole time. Let's flip it around and look at the other end, because this is where we find its hidden grace, its most important lesson. It's a tool that was literally built for second chances.
This is so crucial. Most of us see an eraser as a symbol of failure. It's what you use when you screw up. But what if we've been looking at it all wrong? What if the eraser isn't a tool for fixing failure, but a tool that enables progress? It's there because mistakes are an expected, totally necessary part of the process.
Just think about that for a second. The absolute genius of the pencil's design isn't just the graphite that lets you create something. It's the little piece of rubber on the other end that gives you the freedom to be imperfect. In fact, knowing the eraser is there is what gives you the courage to make the mark in the first place. It gives you the grace to experiment, to fix things, and to keep on going.
Okay, so this is a great metaphor, but it's also a really practical philosophy for life. So how do we take this simple wisdom from the eraser and actually apply it to how we learn, how we work, and how we grow as people?
Well, this is what real growth looks like. And guess what? It's not a straight line up, it's a cycle. First, you try something. You just go for it. Then, inevitably, you make a mistake. No big deal. Next, you use your eraser, whatever that is in your situation, to correct and adjust your course. And finally, the most important part, you learn from it and you start the cycle again, just a little bit smarter this time. That isn't failure, my friend. That is progress.
It all comes down to two totally different ways of looking at an error. With a fixed mindset, a mistake feels like a brick wall, a dead end, a final verdict. That's what causes that paralysis. But with a growth mindset, a mistake is just a first draft. It's a rough sketch. The eraser is the tool that lets us see our mistakes this way.
So what's the big lesson here? What has the eraser taught us? First, mistakes are not permanent scars unless we let them be. Second, the act of correcting is just as creative and important as the initial act of making the mark. It teaches us that you literally cannot learn without being imperfect along the way. And finally, that real progress is never one giant leap, it's a series of small steps, little adjustments, and trying again.
So ultimately, the lesson is this. Stop thinking about your life as just the sharp tip of the pencil. You have to embrace the whole thing. Embrace the courage it takes to make your mark and the wisdom it takes to make a correction. They aren't separate things. They're two parts of the same beautiful process.
So I'll leave you with this question to chew on. What amazing thing, what project, what relationship, what incredible version of yourself are you putting off just because you're terrified that the first attempt won't be perfect? Go find your eraser and get started.